Okay, so today we're going to be working on multiplying binomials. So before we can actually multiply a binomial, we have to talk a little bit about what a binomial is. So a binomial is a special type of polynomial that only has two terms. So if you look at my example to the left in Delta Math, I have multiplication, and inside those parentheses, there are each two terms. So 3x plus 10 is a binomial because there are two terms within that parenthesis, and then I'm multiplying it by 3x minus 7. So it's two terms multiplied by two terms. When I multiply binomials, I'm going to be using the distributive property. So that's why we did that the other day, because I'm going to have to take everything in my first parenthesis and multiply it by everything in my second parenthesis, which means I'm going to have to take this first 3x and multiply it or distribute it to both terms in that second parenthesis. So I'm actually going to rewrite it as 3x times 3x minus 7, taking everything in that first parenthesis and multiplying it by everything in the second. And then I'm going to take the 10 from my first binomial and make sure that gets multiplied by everything in my second parenthesis. It's almost kind of like you split that first binomial. So now this is just two distributing problems in one, and then we're going to look to combine like terms. So if it helps, put those sneaky exponents of 1 in, and we're going to multiply 3x times 3x. 3 times 3 is 9. X times x is x squared. Then I'm going to multiply 3x times negative 7. 3 times negative 7 is negative 21. And then there's nothing to multiply with the x, so I'm just going to bring it along for the ride. Then I go to my second set and I'm multiplying 10 by 3x. So same thing, 10 times 3 is 30, but you just bring along that x, and then 10 times negative 7 is negative 70. So anytime you multiply a binomial by a binomial, you originally will get four terms. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. But then you want to look to see, do any of the terms combine because they have the same variable raised to the same exponent. So if you notice, negative 21x and 30x are like terms. So I can combine them by combining negative 21 and a positive 30 to get a positive 9, keeping the x. And then I bring down the other two terms that I could not combine with anything. So my final answer is 9x squared plus 9x minus 70. Okay, so I come over here and I have 9x squared plus 9x minus 70. And if you notice in the instruction, it says express as a trinomial. Well, a trinomial is a special polynomial that specifically has three terms. So even though when we multiplied, we got four terms, because those two middle terms combined, we ended up with a polynomial with three terms. All right, let's submit the answer. We're good. Let's try another one. Let's do something a little bit different. Okay, so let's try x plus 6 times 3x plus 1. So I'm going to make sure the first term in my first parenthesis gets multiplied by both terms in my second parenthesis. So x times 3x plus 1, and then 6 times 3x plus 1. So I've changed it into just a distributing problem. Put the ones if I need them. X times 3x, remember there's a 1 here, so 1 times 3 is 3. X times x is x squared. 1x times 1 is just 1x. Then I go and distribute in my second set. 6 times 3x is 18x, and 6 times 1 is 6. Notice in the middle again, I have two x terms that I can combine. 1x and 18x is 19x. I bring down the 6 and the 3x squared to get a final answer of 3x squared plus 19x plus 6. Okay, let's try a different one. Okay, so this one doesn't have, so let me do it over here. So I have x plus 10 times x plus 4. So I need to make sure the x multiplies both the x and the x plus 4, and then the 10 multiplies both the x and the x and the 4. So x times x, they both have exponents of 1. They also both have coefficients of 1. So x times, 1 times 1 is 1. And then when I add my exponents, x to the first power and x to the first power is x squared. So then 1x times 4 is just 4x. And going over to my second set, 10 plus x is 10x, and 10 times 4 is 40. If you learned how to FOIL in a previous math class, it's exactly the same thing. First outside, inside, last. All right, again, your middle terms combine. So I'm going to have 1x squared, or you can just write x squared plus 14x plus 40. Okay, so you can choose to write the 1 or not. I'll do it this time, but you don't have to. It'll still mark it right. Okay, let's do something different. Let's do one with some negatives. There's one negative, and then I'll do one with a double negative. Okay, so 2x plus 7 times x minus 10. Remember, when you have negatives, they go with the number that follows that negative sign, so that negative goes with the 10. So I'm multiplying 2x by x and negative 10, so 2x times x and negative 10, and then 7 times x and negative 10. And notice I put a plus 7 because there was a positive sign in front of that 7. So putting those exponents on, 2x times x is going to give me 2x squared. 2x and a negative 10 is negative 20x. 7 times x is 7x, and 7 times negative 10 is negative 7. Okay, so if you notice, it's following pretty much the same procedure each time, and you're always originally getting 4 terms, and then those middle terms combine. Oops. To make your final answer have 3 terms, negative 20x and 7x is negative 13x minus 70. Okay, let's do one more, and let me see if I can find one with 2 negative signs. There we go. So 3x negative 1, 3x minus 8. Remember, that negative goes with the number that's following it. So I'm going to take 3x and multiply it by 3x minus 8. And I'm going to take a negative 1 and multiply it by 3x minus 8. Now, some of you might be able to skip this step and go right to multiplying, and that's okay too. I like to show kind of the step-by-step process, and then as you feel comfortable, you can kind of eliminate a couple steps as you go through and get more familiar and comfortable with it. So 3x times 3x, 3 times 3 is 9, x times x, if I add my exponents, is x squared, then 3x and a negative 8, because remember that negative goes with the 8, is a negative 24x. Then negative 1 times 3x is a negative 3x, and negative 1 and a negative 8, double negative here to make it a positive 8 because I'm multiplying. Then when I'm combining like terms though, I'm adding, so it's negative 24x and a negative 3x, so I add and keep the sign, so that becomes a negative 27x, bring down the 8 and the 9x squared. So my final answer is going to be 9x squared minus 27x plus 8. Okay, and I'll stop there. If you need further examples or some extra help, just send me a message and I'll be happy to go through some of your assignment with you. All right, hope you have a great day.